I hope you are having fun wherever you are. Now today is an interesting episode. We are going to break down the cost of restoring this car, the Nissan Sunny B12. How much money do you think we have spent so far? You see this car? It looks cheap, right? But how much money has actually gone into it? This is my 1986 Nissan Sunny B12. And since I got this car, it has been both a blessing and a headache. This car has taken me places and it has also taken away a lot from me. How much money do you think I have spent so far? I bought this car for 85,000 Kenya shillings. That plus a broker fee of 5,000 Kenya shillings. That adds up to a total of around 90,000. Then there were some other expenses like insurance, but the total cost of the miscellaneous cost of acquiring the car were around 6,500. That includes fuel, insurance, transportation. Back then, I was not too comfortable with an old manual car. So I had to pay a mzee to drive the car from, if you remember where we got the car. We got the car from Rongai. So that was around 2,500 if I'm not wrong. So the total cost was 6,500. The total cost for purchase would add up to around 96,500. So do you think that was a fair price? Would I buy the car at the same price again? Definitely not. Knowing what I know about the car and the amount of work I have done on it, I would negotiate for something way lower. So after purchasing the car, we definitely needed to do some work on it, because the whole idea of buying this car was repair it, restore it, and make videos for you guys. So there are some major costs associated with some major repairs done on this car. I don't have them offhand, so I'm going to refer on the phone. So the first thing we did, some mechanical service and labor. You remember the first video where we were pushing the car? We fixed some issues with the carburetor, idling, gearbox mountings, engine oil, battery. So the labor charge for that service, second episode we did on about this car, the cost was around 3,500. Then I purchased a new carburetor. That was 6,500. I bought a new battery, new quote unquote, because it was a used battery but in very nice condition. I bought it at 5,000. I bought a fuel filter at 150, battery clamp. Those are the things that hold down the battery. Isipotee, sirukaruke. I bought that at 750. Carburetor filter, 150. I bought a coolant cap at 100 shillings. Battery terminal clamps. The battery I bought was bigger than the original battery on the car. So I had to get new terminal clamps. That was around 200 shillings. The handbrakes and the rear brake drums were not grippy enough. So we worked on that. That included servicing the rear wheel bearings. I bought a new gearbox seal and gearbox oil. The whole service cost around 4,450 shillings. I also purchased a new flywheel. Remember, we had issues with the starter. The old starter was not working. So part of the issue was also the flywheel. It was so worn out such that the cogs on the starter could not turn the flywheel properly. That was 4,500. And the labor associated with replacing that, I paid 1,000 shillings. The gearbox mounting had broken. No, actually the two studs that hold the gearbox on the mounting had broken inside the gearbox. So they had to be removed. And upon removing them, we discovered that the threads were worn out. So the gearbox had to go back to the Kalasinga to rethread it. And we added some sleeves for the threads. The whole cost was around 3,000. Then the transport for the gearbox to Kirinyaga Road, that was around 400 shillings. The labor and a few supplies, studs, oil, that amounted to around 6,200 shillings. Now, remember I've mentioned the starter. The first time we bought the car, the starter would not work. So I bought a new starter. That was around 5,000 shillings. The labor to replace the starter was 1,000 shillings. Now we come to some other major things. Valve seals. I bought valve seals and they were installed. This is to prevent oil leaking through the valve stems. Labor plus cost of purchase of the valve seals. Plus I also bought a new gasket, because once you remove the head, the gasket will obviously get spoiled. So you cannot put it back. So you have to buy a new gasket. That added up to 4,500 shillings. Recently, we have changed the passenger side CV joint, and I also bought a new coil spring for the driver side. I also bought a few boots and a few nuts here and there. The total cost was 6,860. At the beginning of the project, we discovered some spots that needed to be welded on the passenger side pillar. So that was done at a cost of 2,300. We also serviced the bearings and the handbrake at a cost of 1,600. I also dropped the whole exhaust to weld some rusty spots. That cost 2,300. Then we came to the most exciting part. We went and purchased new tires, 4 new tires, at a total cost of 15,600, and we tipped the tire replacement guy 300 shillings. In the course of the restoration, we have also bought new spark plugs at 1,500. Then came our major disaster. So one day I was on the road, headed somewhere. You remember an episode titled, "We Are All the Same."
We are all on the same bumpy road, trying to get to the next destination.
As I was on my way, climbing up an incline, the car suddenly switched off. All the dash lights came on, and I had to park on the side. Upon checking, I discovered that the timing belt had broken. That was a very sad day for me and for the B12. On that day, I bent all the 8 valves. This car is a 4-cylinder, so it has 4 valves on the intake side and 4 valves on the exhaust side. All 8 were bent, and I had to replace them. The total cost of replacing the timing belt plus all the accompaniments, a seal, silicone, and labor, that was around 4,500. Now came the time to buy new valves. That totaled to 5,200 shillings. Then the labor, silicone, and all the other minor bits and pieces, that was 6,050 shillings. I later purchased lead wires ex-Japan from Grogon at 3,000. Recently, I have overhauled the suspension, new shock absorbers, and a few bushes here and there. That was around 20,000 Kenya shillings. We also did gearbox servicing at 5,500 and bought gearbox oil at 1,000 shillings. At the beginning of the project, I also bought door locks at 2,000 Kenya shillings, and the labor to repair that was 3,900 shillings. So those are the major expenses that we have encountered while trying to fix the Nissan Sunny B12. The major expenses have totaled to around 128,010 shillings. Quite a huge amount of money. Now, to repairs and expenses that I would have ideally done without. Paintwork, 30,000 Kenya shillings. Then 18,000 associated with painting. Things like buying door rubbers, door bushes, such things. This was around 18,000 shillings. But I have to place a disclaimer on this 18,000 shillings. Part of this money was lost to dishonest mechanics. Kuibiwa hapa na pale. And being told to buy things that ideally I should not have bought, and at an inflated cost. So advice for you guys who are doing builds and restoring cars, if you need to buy anything, don't trust any mechanic to buy anything for you. Kama ni kwenda Grogon, kama ni kwenda Kirinyaga Road, do it yourself. Get a day that you're not busy and go there yourself. You don't have to buy something that costs 1,000 at 2,000 shillings. Minor expenses add up to a lot. And that's where I found myself with 18,000 extra on top of the 30,000 that I was charged to paint the car. And at the end of the day, the paint job was not as I had envisioned. So there are some other expenses like buying oil. I have done 3 oil changes, not necessarily because the car was due for service, but I was trying to get the optimal oil, engine oil for the car. So the first time I used 20W50, which I discovered was too heavy for the engine. It would resort to a knocking sound before the oil would heat up and circulate throughout the engine. So I discarded that and went to SAE 40. Again, I discovered that oil was too thin for the engine. The temperatures would rise a little bit faster than my liking. Finally, I've settled on 15W40. I found that this oil is a better viscosity for this particular engine. I think I'm going to stick there for now. So that's why I said some of these expenses I should not have incurred. But at the end of the day, you have to do a little bit testing here and there. So other things like door repairs, door locks, oil filters, nuts, trying to repair the starter, which at the end of the day I ended up replacing. So all those costs adds up to 75,360. So these costs include night security, transport, boda, tire change costs, such minor costs. So that adds up to 75,360. What is the total cost so far? Wenye wamefanya hesabu najua mshafika the figure. It is a huge figure. And was it worth it? Do you think I should have spent such money on this old car? For the adventure, yes, but a bit differently. I would switch up a few things here and there. First of all, I would negotiate for a cheaper cost of purchase of the unit. I would also supervise every bit of the repair work. No money to any mechanic, no money to any repairman. If I need the service, a part, I go get it myself. Also do more research on whatever the fix that is recommended. Sometimes you don't need these fixes. I would also buy more tools and do it myself. Some of these things are very easy and simple to do once you have the tools. So let me give you the final figure. Once we add up 96,500, the total purchase price, 128,010 shillings, the major repairs, 75,360, repairs that were needed but not necessary, and money lost here and there, we get to a total of 299,870. Please note, there are some things that I have might forgotten. A few hundred shillings here for the night watchman, 250 shillings for something, but the total cost is 299,870 shillings. So after all the effort, the expenses and the time spent, do you think it was worth it? Please let me know in the comment section. Also, do let me know, should I continue fixing this car or should I finally let it go? What do you think? Again, please subscribe, share, comment, and let your friends know about the channel. And thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Moses, this is for you, bro. It's around 7 p.m. at night. Let me try to find somewhere darker so that I can show you how bright the LEDs are. Low beam, full beam. So the night is a bit clear. I hope that helps. And thank you for subscribing and thank you for engaging me. I appreciate it, man. Adios until the next one.